Hey everybody! Welcome to Gerry and Joy's Kaleidoscopic Chaos.
Heyo.
It's been a while for you guys. For you guys.
It's been a while for us too, not gonna lie.
Well, no. Are we going to tell them? Because technically it isn't. We've tried.
It is. It's just worse for, like, even for us it's been long, but it's even worse for them because we've been great podcasters. Excellent. Very, very consistent in our content.
We've tried to do some. Well, there was a large gap in which we were both very busy, and then I guess we could kind of like catch up a bit because, for example, we tried to film a video last week and didn't. Anyway, things happened.
Mistakes were made, but we tried one last year and decided to kind of semi-scrap that one. We were like, no. Last week we were like, let's try again, and then mistakes were made in the process of trying to figure out how to record.
There.
But anywho,
it's all good. What matters is that we're here now, and we're gonna make sure that this one gets saved and properly uploaded.
Yeah, exactly.
So welcome back.
and silver linings of, I think, in the process of the aftermath of that, we kind of stumbled across our current premise that we'd like to present to the people.
Yeah, I feel like, well, Gerry and I both feel like up till now our podcast has been, well, interesting to us, but kind of like vague and like not wandering, but just like didn't really have a goal, and also like kind of haphazard in the way that we like had our interactions, perhaps. I don't know what the word would be,
to say the least.
It helped us to kind of have a good conversation. I wouldn't call it hard.
No.
But it was like a more serious conversation of like, what do we want out of this? How do we make it better? Not that we expect it to be like amazing, but how do we make it better and more like, not interesting even, just cleaner? Like, I don't know again what the word would be.
Polished? I don't know.
Yeah, just better.
Let's go with that. Improvement. I think the whole point here is improvement, and improvement on kind of the communication stance and the conversation stance, and just figuring out a way where, I think for us in our usual talks, we'll go all over the place in terms of topics and jump back and forth, and we'll kind of, we'll monologue, we'll rant for a while, and then we'll kind of like bounce ideas off of each other and, kind of cut each other off or whatever. But, that works when we're talking for like 5 hours, because we don't notice, and it's fine because it's just the two of us.
Yeah.
But when we want to include a third party and break the fourth wall somewhat, and just have those people not be, losing their minds in the process, we figured this might not be the best format to maintain, and have a bit more of a plan of how do we have a conversation that is watchable and listenable by someone else. So that's kind
more
of
interactive.
Yeah. Something that was just going to be easier to follow along, especially for anybody who would be like just listening to audio, because we were like, we tend to just, it's either, again, just going on for a really long time, or like overlapping audio, which is not helpful in terms of just, when you're talking to each other like on a screen, like it doesn't matter to you both if you're kind of cutting each other off, because you can still hear yourself, but anybody else who's trying to make it out, like it gets chaotic very quickly, and so we figured it was worth a shot of just trying to see, can we improve on that sense, can we try something, and even just seeing, is it doable, is it feasible, how can we really work on conversation? Because conversation is tricky. Communication is tricky.
Yep.
Just a wee tidbit.
and that's what like you do for a living in a way. Like you help people learn to communicate and better, and like work with them in that kind of way. Not like
Ideally.
there's nuances to what you do, but yeah, it's part of it, at least, like learning to communicate better. And like, of course, I grew up in a big family, so I have had to learn to communicate with different kinds of people. And yeah, I just feel like we both enjoy communicating at its base form. And like Gerry was the one that mentioned it, and I loved it. And it's a bit of a challenge because you don't want to hear like, oh, you could learn to communicate better, or the way that you're talking isn't the best way that you could present yourself. It's not like I was like, my pride was dinged, but it was just like, I don't like having to think about that because it's just work. But it's true. Like there are ways that we communicate that are like really haphazard and fast moving, and we don't notice it sometimes.
Well, exactly. And I think it brings back to the question of, and that, I question myself a lot, even in my line of work and when I work with people in trying to improve on that stance and with acquired like communication difficulties. It's what is good communication? Like good communication. What does that actually mean or signify? And I know that like when I break it down with people, it's okay. First and foremost, we're looking at functional, and after functional, we're looking at satisfactory, and or like agreeable, and like that can vary a lot on what kind of exchange you're trying to have, because communication is it's hard to not communicate. The second that you have two people, you've got communication, whether you want it or not. Yes. And so good communication isn't just one thing. And oftentimes what we kind of label as good communication is more just like pretty communication. It sounds good, it looks good, but sometimes
it's aesthetic.
Exactly, it's aesthetic, but sometimes it's absolutely empty and devoid of any like proper meaning and content that is worth listening to. And I think bringing it back where communication, it's the fundamental notion to understand and be understood in some form or fashion, and knowing that in a lot of ways, there are times like, again, when it's just the two of us, jumping around from topic to topic and cutting each other off or whatever isn't necessarily bad communication, because in that circumstance, it's functional and it's understood. Like we both, whether verbally, explicitly, or just kind of like as an understood thing, we're like, this is fine, this is how we work, and we're happy with how that works. But there's scenarios where that doesn't work as well, and this is why here we kind of realized, oh, this doesn't work as well, this isn't as conducive to what we're trying to do here. So what kind of skills could we kind of work on that might be more conducive to that? And that's why, and this isn't even a test of being like, oh, this is going to be like improving or being better, or necessarily. It's just trying different and seeing what does that look like. And I'm sure it's going to be interesting just to see, because I know even with the people that I work with, it's hard, it's hard, and it's not easy, but it's often just an interesting exercise in just kind of introspection and just kind of like self-reflection and kind of just seeing yourself go, because we do a lot of things just very much on autopilot and we're not very self-aware of what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is hard and easy at the same time, and self-reflection is important. So I think with having that conversation, Gerry and I both realized that, like we want to make things just a little bit more neat and interesting and more coherent almost for anyone who listens. And we listed a few things basically. So we're going to kind of do like a mini series about communication, and we're going to work on some skills in real time. That if anyone like finds any of them interesting, or maybe has the same struggles as us, you guys can implement it in your own lives. And obviously we're not going to do it perfectly, but we're going to take like one skill or like a couple of video and just like kind of talk about it, break it down, see how we want to apply it, try to apply it maybe from like where went the beginning when we mention it, and see how it goes. And then Gerry suggested that we just have a little, like at the end of the video, if you make it that far,
Aye.
have a little bit of like not a rating, but just like a feedback to ourselves and each other. Like, how did that go? Like for example, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Gerry, but our topic for today is staying on topic. And
our skill is staying on topic.
Yes. And so if anyone like has seen any of our other episodes, you'll know that we tend to meander and tangent. And
I don't know what you're talking about.
I love it. It's so much fun. I just have a great time chatting and just like laughing and being stupid. But for sure, like, you know, people who are out there listening to podcasts and watching us and listening to us, like, I'm not trying to make it all about you, but it is true. It's like we are trying to be consumed, right? Like we don't want to waste time, but like, I don't know. It's like a hard thing of like, you want to keep who you are, but you also have to realize that like you have to also know how to be thoughtful about the listeners and like work on ways to make the podcast like better, you know? So like to me, like, yeah, us staying on topic might be good to try. And maybe like, again, you mentioned us and Gerry, maybe we try this and we're like, like this doesn't, like, it's awkward and it's clumsy, and like it's better for us if we kind of meander a bit more. Like we don't have to rigidly follow it, but like it is a good practice, I think, for sure. Because
yeah, I think the goal is, this is very, very experimental as a concept. But I think it's worth, exactly, it's worth a shot and just trying it out. And again, it's not to say, oh, you know, like good versus bad communication. It's just understanding the different ways that it works and the complexities of it, and like in what circumstance does it work better or less well. Because again, like, are we trying to have a more like functional or efficient exchange, you know? And I think it boils back to your goal. Like, are you having something that's more of like a transactional exchange where you're sharing information and it has to go from like one person to the next, or you've got like a goal? Right. Is it more structured, or is it more loosey-goosey because it's more informal, you know? And that's just it, like formal versus informal, where in an informal setting, do what you please is like, it doesn't matter, you know. And I mean, to the extent
within reason,
obviously, but like to the extent where, I mean, you can sometimes practicing skills in informal settings can be interesting as well, because you don't have kind of the pressure of as something that's as formal, but sometimes that makes it that much harder because informal settings offer that much less structure inherently and make it that much harder to kind of contain yourself. But there's nothing that keeps you from kind of creating formal structure in something that's informal, as long as you're not like too rigid. And that's just it. And it's seeing like, you don't want to be too rigid, but you don't want to be too flexible either, or not necessarily flexible, but you don't want to kind of just scatter to the four winds, as we tend to want to do a lot. So
it doesn't help that I'm more like, I don't like being put in a box. So when Gerry first suggested this, I was like, I don't know. Oh, yeah. I don't want to lose like who we are. And Gerry's like, okay, like, no, it's just like being like learning some skills and putting them into play. Like it doesn't, you know, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. But now I'm like, okay. And that makes me sound like I'm unwilling. I'm not, but I'm very much of like a gypsy in my nature of just like, I like being able to wander. And like Gerry and I, like the reason we started this podcast was because we are very similar in that, where we love the way that we interact and communicate, and like I feel like we have a really good relationship in that way, where we do have that like openness, and I was loath to change that, but I think like a lot, like in talking to people online or like friends, like I do feel like the skills that we want to practice will be useful. They'll be and even just being able to implement them at will. Like I have never thought about the idea of like staying on topic, at least unless I'm like apologizing for not staying on topic, and then I don't care because I'm like, whatever.
Well, exactly. And like for me, this is interesting because I think it's been it's a needed exercise, especially even because of what I do, because it's the ironic part of my job is that, like, again, I help people with communication skills, but that is contingent on my communication skills as well. And the problem is that I have my own issues. Like, nobody's perfect in terms of communication, and so I know that for myself, the amount of things that I have to, like, that I'm trying to teach my people, I'm like, oh no, oh gosh, this is you've oof, dropped the ball on that one big time.
You're like, oh boy.
Yeah, and especially recently, and just, you know, when the ADHD kicks in, and that's like the funniest part, where, you know, for so many things I understand them well, so it's like I'm the best place in terms of being understanding and compassionate, and like I get it. That being said, sometimes I'm a bad example in how to, like, I'm an example of like what not to do. Unfortunately. So I think it's a good exercise just in general, and seeing what we can maybe hopefully get out of it. And if you want to kind of go over the list that we kind of established of the sort of aspects that we'd like to kind of cover, and yeah, sometimes it'll be like maybe one specific one that we're going to kind of target, but there's going to be a lot of overlap, because they kind of involve each other in a lot of ways, and that might be interesting as well, like even in our recap of seeing, you know, like we were like, oh, that was kind of technically the skill we were going to work on, but how did the others kind of come into play as well, ultimately?
Right. Okay, so our list is number 1, staying on topic. And number 2, staying concise. Number 3, turn taking. Number 4, no interrupting. That is going to be a little hard.
So much fun.
Fun, yeah, okay. Number 5 is going to be active listening. And number 6, and this one, last one, is more of like just being an awareness. So we might like bring it up every episode, but it's focusing on the conversation we're having. And then in brackets, like sitting and being understimulated. And the reason I like that is because I'm so used to like watching a show and like being on my phone or like on my computer playing a game while watching YouTube. So the idea of like actually like you got like anyone who's listening is probably doing something else while listening, and that's fine because that's kind of what podcasts are for. Oh, but in filming this podcast, recording it, I'm not used to just sitting here and just talking. Like when we call, I'm doing something else. When
same.
Like, everything I do is like 2 in 1 almost, if not 3 sometimes.
Oh, exactly.
So like this is a good exercise for us overall, I think, and it's not really a skill that we're going to focus on in one video, because I think just sitting and doing nothing while recording is good.
Well, and I think part of the thing where it's like, yes, this is communication, but I think part of the reason too is it boils back down to relationships as well, and just interactions, just the social dynamics between people, and that communication becomes very, very kind of self-fulfilling or self-pleasing. And we forget the us, we forget the we, and it's very, very me, you know, I'm listening only long enough to figure out what I want to say, or, you know, I'm just talking, but I just like hearing the sound of my own voice, and we're not necessarily always caring about the other person or caring about the fact that we're sharing something with someone, which is going to be more with like the ones further down and of like the sort of the active listening, and like that final point of just caring and being invested in the topic for the sake of the topic, and for the sake of the fact that we are sharing this moment together. Because I know that like, and it's
sharing this moment.
I know, and I know.
Sorry, I'm like, oh. Every time you hear about sharing of moments, it's always like a romantic or like, you know, emotional thing. But
well, you know. But I think that's just it, where we yeah, it's so easy to just get caught up in the me and talking. And I know for myself, and I feel like it's just something that I notice so much in other people as well, is the concept of talking at people and not talking with people. And I'm like, it hit me a lot, especially in more recent times, where I'm like, that bothers me. And I know, like, it irks me in other people, but then I was like, but I do that so much as well. And
I think actually up till now in our podcast, we've both been doing it to each other.
Oh, 100%.
I'm not unhappy, because I like, again, that's kind of our personal conversations. Like,
sure,
we do kind of talk at each other, but because we interrupt and go fast, it doesn't hit as hard, because we're just like, we're both so interested in the conversation we're having. But on a podcast, I don't know, I listen to our old ones and I'm like, they're interesting. Like, they're not boring, but you can tell that it's like, we're just monologuing at each other about things, and it's not like an actual like back and forth conversation.
Oh, exactly. It's that instead of it being like a tennis match, it's just more the mine. Okay, now mine. Like we're just grabbing it from the other person instead of being like, and now it's yours, and now it's yours. And the whole point of, you know, same thing, let's say with like turn taking or even with active listening of how do you engage and keep a conversation going, but without it being just because you're trying to always input something into it, you know, and that you're always trying to be heard. And where sometimes it can be interesting to just be like, now I'm just listening. I'm just interested in what the other person is saying. Doesn't matter what I think, or well, not that it doesn't matter what I think, but that's not the most important part. It's like if I have something to input or if I have a thought on something, I can and will, but to not feel that weight, because I think that's just it. There's so much, because everything, like you said, everything is so fast paced, and there's like this almost this FOMO in even in conversation of, but I must get my ideas out there. The world needs to know. And it's like, but why? What's the rush? It's okay if not every idea gets out of your head and is spoken into the world, or it's okay if it's not right now. You know, where it's like, it's fine. Like we have so many ideas and there's so many things and there's so many topics that we could talk about for ages, but
bro, my brain, this is my brain. I'm like thinking of like a new acronym instead of FOA.
Oh no. Oh no.
FONGEO. Fear of not getting everything out.
Oh gosh.
It's true though. Like again, like we talked about last week. Like, you know, you're, because of, I think, what was it? I don't remember what you said. I'm not gonna put words in your mouth, but for me it was like, I grew up with 9 siblings, so I had to fight to be heard. And oftentimes us younger kids didn't get heard at all. And like, if you were going to be part of a conversation to make your point, you were like shouting or like, you know, being physically like, oh, like
imposing.
Not that we were violent, but like, it's just like, it was a very aggressive form of communication. And I obviously don't do that with anyone else in my life, but it kind of stuck with me now to the point where it's like, if I don't talk now with everything that I think, it's never going to be heard. And it's like, no, Joy, like, you can, like, A, not everything you say needs to get heard. And B, like, if something really matters for you to be heard, like, take a break, like, let Gerry go and say what she has to, and then come back to it or something. Like, not everything has to be said, like, literally in that moment. Maybe another episode will happen where I can talk about it. Like, there is a certain amount of patience that I do not have, and I need to work on.
Oh, absolutely. And I think sometimes, and that's the point of also not always making it about you, is that's just it. Because like there's
Hold out.
No, but there's the notion of like, I think sometimes like if there is this inherent impression that, oh, I need to say everything because I want to be understood. Well, where does that come from? That comes from an inherent place where I don't inherently feel understood. And it's in the, well, if we make more of a point to begin with, where mutually we take the time to understand the other person mutually, then we don't feel as much of a rush to say things because we already feel more heard to begin with. So anyway, a lot of ideas, a lot of concepts. I think we've gone on enough with our intro at this point that it's worth, you know, jumping into the thick of things and trying with, you know, exercise number 1, which is staying on topic. And in order to stay on topic, we have to establish our topic and establish what is topic and what is not topic.
Yes. This is a tough one for me because I feel like when we do talk about things, typically it is relatable. But I think the idea of it is, in my mind, this is just what I think, because, you know, we all have different opinions. I think you have to first flesh out your topic, like, clearly. And I don't, like, because you and I tend to be more vague. We'll be like, oh, let's talk about this. And it's like, I get it. And, you know, because we know we typically can go on and on about anything for a while, it works. But I think that in order to stay on a topic, we have to have like a specific topic to discuss. Like, instead of being like, let's talk about romantic relationships, for example, we would then instead be like, let's focus on why people don't want to get into romantic relationships. Like, have a really specific topic is, I think, a part of being able to stay on topic. Because then if we just have an overarching romantic relationship topic, well, I could go anywhere.
Well, exactly. And I know, like, it's the analogy that I use so often at work is you got to make a road. You've got to have a road ahead of you. Like, the conversation, your topic is what you drive on, and if it's not specific enough, then it's a wide open field, and it's like, well, no wonder you can't follow a specific direction, because there is no direction, anything that's giving you an impression of direction. Well, if you have a road, then you've got, again, clear sense of what are my lanes, am I staying within my lanes? You have a more, like, and without having to be like too rigid about it, but you have a better idea of like, what are my lanes, what are my sidewalk, and what is like, I've completely gone off on a different side street entirely, you know. And that's just it, where and in being such a fast-paced world, like, ideas are so adjacent, like, we are highly associative creatures as well. So it's only normal that we relate things to so many different things, and it's the idea where, you know, all roads lead to Rome. But if I'm trying to get somewhere, sometimes it's the, you know, sometimes you can take the side streets, but it's the get back on the main road, so you can, it's the highway is faster than the small streets to get to your point. Ultimately, you can still get there, and sometimes it's relevant to go off on a side tangent, because, you know, it's like it's necessary to give the appropriate context. But I think your side quest should not take longer than the main story.
Well, and if we're going to follow with the, like, traveling, you know, metaphor, like, we are the drivers and the people who listen are passengers. And if we're, like, Ubering you around to this topic, and we're taking the side streets and going the back way, and you know, like, it's like we're a taxi, and, like, we want to be the most efficient. And again, not to make it boring and dry milk toast, but, like, you know, you do want to have an efficient trip. You do want to be able to make your point, get your passengers there quickly and safely. And I think, yeah, we definitely tend to get stuck in the field. Just being like, it's a pretty field. And our passengers are like, okay, but, like, we got to get to work. Like, we're late. Like,
well, exactly. And I think there's something fun about being able to have, like, that free range of going wherever. But, like, there's the flip side 100%. Of it, where it's a little bit, there's a security in knowing where you're going, and having and following directions and knowing where you're going. And I think that's just it. Sometimes, like, we go really, really long on a story, and the person's like, you're clearly going somewhere with this, but I still don't know where we're going. And it's like, can you get there? Or it's like, get to your point and then add afterwards, because there's something, like, almost anxiety inducing in, like, trying to listen to a story and being like, we're gonna get there somewhere, you know, like, I'll figure out what's happening eventually, you know, someone's gonna tell me something at some point. But if we're not clear, if we're not enough on the road, then it does become almost like anxiety inducing in its own right to be so all over the place. Especially if you're trying to share information that, like, is apparently important, because at one point when you're oversaturated with information, like, we can, like, our attention spans have gotten worse and worse and worse, and it's like, I'm trying to focus and I'm trying to glean what is important here, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be focusing on. I don't know what my, like, what's important here, like, what's my priority, or, like, what's supposed to be my takeaway, like, what are my keynotes from this. And it's the, okay, you know. And that's where it's your kind of like your whole job or responsibility as the person who's explaining something, where, again, a lot of information adds depths, it adds richness, but it's not necessary. And again, you don't want to be, like, completely dry, because certain things are, like, you know, you're like, that was it, you know.
I'm
like,
allergic to being dry.
Well, like there's something to be said about, like, storytelling abilities. Like, they make stories interesting. Like, how much it changes the essence of the story, or like what was to be gleaned, not necessarily, but it makes the road a lot much more fun. Like, that's just it. It's like, instead of just like, we drove for like 3 hours, you know, straight on a highway that had nothing, nowhere, and you're like, well, this was a great ride. Instead of being like, okay, we'll do a pit stop every so often, see the sights for a little bit, you know, have a little bit of
stretch your legs.
Exactly. You have to stretch your legs, and then you can get back in. So, you know, I think exactly, it's is there a balance that can be had between, you know, enjoying the journey, but also not forgetting the destination?
And I think that's something we have struggled with, where we're like, we really enjoy the journey a lot.
So much.
We enjoy the journey
so much.
I'm just thinking about the episode where we were together after Mexico, and it was and don't get me wrong, I love that episode. It's so chaotic, but I don't think that that's something you can do every time, and I don't think it's just a lot. It's not realistic. Yeah, it's just like it's fun. It's over, and I don't know. It again, my brain is like, I don't want to tie myself down to this certain way thing, but it's like, no, like realistically, yeah, like we do. I watch a lot of YouTube. I don't really listen to podcasts. I'm more of like I like to have it like on my second screen while I work, but I watch a lot of YouTube and different like commentators, and yeah, like they all have a point to their videos. And maybe they'll tangent a little bit during their video, but they're always going back to that overarching point of what they're talking about. And I think that's what we need to have for sure.
Yeah,
just like a consistent through line.
No, and I think the point, and again, I think this exercise isn't necessarily meant to be fun. It's more meant to, again, to be more just informative.
All right, I'm out.
Ha 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 ha. But I think like that's just it. And again, I think it's being able to try things and be like, you know, how hard was it actually to try to do this? And at least, you know, the plus side is that, again, in trying, and if we hate it, that just means that when we go back to normal, we can enjoy it that much more so. Because you don't like
this is the right fit.
Well, yeah. Exactly. It's the kind of thing of, you know, just when you've got, you know, taking your bra off at the end of the day. You know, you're like, and now they're free. Let them be free.
Oh, yeah. People wear those things.
Oh, joy.
# work from home. No, there is a relief. Yeah. And again, we could, if we do try this staying on topic thing and we decide this is a really good feeling and it's a good practice for us, it doesn't mean that we won't ever have like crazy ones either. Like, you know what I mean? Like to you have to take it as it comes. There and if we do manage to keep doing this over the years, we're gonna go through a lot of different life phases. I don't know what the word would be.
Sure.
Changes, phases, and like I'm sure our chaos will up and down, but like I don't know. It's a good practice and a good exercise to try to do. So, staying on topic, what shall our topic be to practice?
I know that we talked about kind of in a list of different topics, adulting. But that is a very vague and general topic. So why don't we specify a little bit?
Specify. Okay, so what about topping?
Oh, joy. Get your man out of the gutter, girl.
That was not what I was trying to say. I was trying to say, what about adulting? I think it's because I mixed up adulting and topic.
Sure. Well, we're going to go with that.
So what
you are dominating after all.
Adulting. My mind keeps wanting to say topping now. Oh.
And we're doomed. This is a great start to staying on topic. Should we maybe switch topics?
already failed right out the gate. Adulting.
There we go.
So what like specifically about adulting? I know we mentioned, well, our prior attempted podcast was about doing like hard things as an adult.
Yeah.
But do you think that's still too vague? we're clearly very prepared people.
As always. I think...
And, I mean, my thoughts are we already kind of talked a lot about explaining everything. So maybe like, yeah, we could talk about adulting, doing hard things, maybe from examples from our own life, and just try to keep it a bit shorter today.
Yeah.
And then that way.
Yeah, I think it's the talk about it, but through the use of examples. And yeah, like have maybe some specific examples and then an idea pertaining to that, generally speaking. So let's give this a try.
Okay. And also, to clarify, I like clarifying.
Oh boy.
If we do start to go off topic, does the other one say, like, do we have a catchphrase? Like, what's the code word? Do we decide on something? Like, if you start monologuing or I start monologuing, the other goes like...
Yeah, do we need a safe word? Either that or do we want a gesture or something or whatever, because...
Is that good? For anyone who's just listening, I just gave the bird.
Birds, but yes.
Multiple birds.
So many birds.
We're diverging from the topic.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
We should do the walls and grommet handshaking. Ooh, grommet. Sorry. Intrusive thoughts. That's what I thought of when I started doing that. Anyway.
Oh,
what are your suggestions?
Maybe we could just do like going back to the sort of like staying on topic of being like just following the road. It's like eyes on the road, eyes on the road. Yeah, exactly. Eyes on the road, eyes on the road.
Okay. All right. Cool. I mean, I still think we could go with the birds, but I guess.
Do we want this to be family friendly or not? But are you family friendly is really the question.
I can't answer that question. I'm not a family, Okay. All right. Topic.
Yes, topic.
Okay, so our topic is, our practice topic today is adulting, doing hard things. I'm sorry, I'm like 12.
Are you okay? Are you gonna be okay? Do you want me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Guide me.
Yeah. Well, I know that we've done and the idea of the adulting and doing hard things, it's we say hard things, it's more just doing the things that are kind of part of everyday life, but that doesn't mean you're happy that you have to do them. But you're like, why is this a thing? Because I know recently I've had like car troubles, and so just calling for appointments. I hate calling period. So like calling for appointments and just figuring things out and dealing with people and
I want to input quickly, not just car problems, but also like you sold your car and bought another car. Like it wasn't just like repairs. It was like you had to find a new car and then sell your old car, and there's just it's just a lot of effort on both sides. Then things started shitting out with your new car. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, my recent hard thing has been the car, because there was just finding a newer car, finally upgrading, and then kind of figuring out how to depart with the old car, and then now new car, because I can't catch a break, has been interesting already. But point being, it's involved, a lot of just various phone calls or just, just meeting up with people and interactions, a lot of interactions that I'm just like, I'd rather not have to do this, but fine, if I must.
Right.
If I must. So yeah, no, I think recently that's just been a lot of that, and just feeling where it's like you finish your workday and you're like, I don't want to do things anymore, but then you're like, I still got things to do though. And you're like, no more. I want to be done. And it never ends. Like, there's always just something new down the line. Like, you know, as much as, like, once this is hopefully going to be done soon-ish, it's like, what's next? What, pray tell, will be the next thing?
I don't know about you, but I feel like there's 2 levels of hard things. Maybe that's me being dramatic. But I feel like there's, like, the hard things that are, like, obviously hard. Where it's like, okay, I really need to go to the dentist. Okay, like, for example, my hard thing that I did recently was getting my G1. And to everyone who's listening or watching and has their license, you know that it's not hard. And I agree with you. It's not hard. It's easy. It's quite easy. But I had built it up into this huge thing in my head. And also, I don't want to drive, so I was very stubbornly avoiding it. But I finally went this last Friday and did it. And I think that's more of like a big hard thing, of like a big thing in your life that you're like, I need to do this, I need to deal with it. Yeah. And then I think there are smaller hard things where, like, for example, I work all day. I don't want to do my dishes, or like, okay, actually, no, that's not a hard thing. Let me rephrase this. It'd be like cleaning my bathroom. Like, I'm like, it's like dusty. I need to clean it. And I think it is hard to get yourself to do things when, like, you don't want to do them in your life. Because we're so, you know, I'm tangenting. I know I am. But, like, basically, yeah, like, I think the second hard thing is, like, smaller things that aren't as externally important and visible, but they're really hard for you to push yourself to do, like laundry and cleaning and appointments.
Well, and I think that's just it, and that's where I think sometimes, like to your point, like not everything is inherently hard. They just feel harder. They feel there's a tediousness to that,
like a motivation thing.
Exactly. And I think sometimes there's a part of it where, like, certain things have a bit more of an urgency, or they're a little bit more like the ramifications and the potential consequences of doing or not doing it matter a bit more. And there are certain things where it's like, if I don't do it, I'm not going to die, but it's a good idea that I do it.
That you know of.
Exactly. Like, let's say, like, again, going to the dentist, where it's the, you know, like, inherently, I mean, unless you have, like, a really big tooth problem or whatever, but, like, it on the short term anyway, you're like, it's not the end of the world. But, you know, in the long run, it's a good idea. And there are certain things where, like, they're just, again, like, cleaning, a lot of it is like, unless you get to a point of very, very, like, it's been far, far, far too long, like, there's no immediate danger to not doing a certain amount of chores. Like, I mean,
unless you eat a lot of bananas.
Exactly.
And, like, throwing them on the floor.
Exactly. Well, no, but it's the kind of thing where, like, at so many certain chores, like some of them, you do them almost more out of necessity than out of actual, like, you're like, oh, you know, I want to do it because for the sake of doing it, like dishes, where it's like, well, I've run out of dishes, you know, or laundry. It's like, I have no more underwear. So it's like, now's the time to do my laundry. It's like, I will wait until that point. Like, that is what motivates to do the action and do the hard thing. Yeah. And not because you're like, oh, you know, might as well, you know. And that's just it, where we kind of, without wanting to necessarily always wait until the last minute, but, like, there are a lot of things where you do wait, and it's that in waiting, that's what makes it hard, is that you build it up as this thing that feels monumental. You know, you build it up in your mind of something 100%. That you're like, I don't want to do this. And
that's like, that's me in working out. Like, I'm basically waiting, or I was basically waiting to a point where I would be so unhealthy or, like, have issues, or I was waiting to eventually, like, unintentionally waiting to, like, I kind of did need a point where I was like, you're unhealthy and, like, you're overweight and you need to, like, take care of yourself and work out and, like, at least just be more active and eat better. And I have been trying to challenge myself in that, because it's really hard to do something without, like, an inherent, like, external reasoning. You and I have discussed this a lot.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And that's when it becomes hard. Like, I've started doing, like, small workouts every day, and, like, every day it's hard. Like, it is so hard to be like, instead of, like, sitting and gaming and watching YouTube, I can watch YouTube and do a workout. And it's like, again, the simplest first world problem thing to do, to pull up my yoga mat and do a YouTube video, but, like,
but it feels monumental, and you're like, it's
hard,
and like,
it's
sometimes
hard,
and you're like, and for so many things you're like, it's just 15 minutes, or, like, it's 30, like, flossing.
Yeah.
flossing. Like, the amount of times where I have to convince myself to do that, and you're like, it's so stupid. It's like, it takes 30 seconds to a minute maximum. What is wrong with you? And yet there's like a tediousness to those kind of things where you're like, ugh, and convincing yourself to do so many things that you know are good for you and or will make you feel better. Like, and that's just it, where I think, you know, we just don't like having to do things sometimes, you know?
I think, okay, this might seem like a tangent, but I actually do think it's more of a reasoning as to why we struggle with doing, like, routine, everyday things. I think in part of it is, like, our fast lifestyle and our, like, now lifestyle. Because, for example, like, eating well or cleaning or, like, working out, it all is, like, a long-term thing. Or, like, it's you have to be consistent in the now to reap long-term benefits. Or in even clean, you could say, well, no, because, like, in the now it's clean, but in, like, 5 days it's going to be dirty. So I understand that, but it's like, if you don't clean now, it's going to be doubly dirty in 5 days, and eventually it's going to be super, like, you know what I mean? So, like,
yeah,
in the now, okay, this is a weird example. If I don't shave my legs semi-often, it's going to build up to be really hairy. And so when I eventually do shave my legs, it's such a pain. And I get cut a lot because, you know, it's, like, longer and it's harder for the blade to do it. So you're, like, that's a really weird example. But,
no, but
I feel like it's so strongly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's just it. Exactly. It's but we, like you said, it's so fast-paced, and we're very much in the instant gratification. And it's something, and this is going to be, well, it's off topic, but it's relating to your prior things that you were mentioning of just
sustained.
Yeah. That exactly. Where was I going with this though?
Sorry.
I forget your point, but
I off-roaded your off-road.
Exactly. There we go. Exactly. Off-road. Oh, goodness graciousness. It's just so many layers to this.
I was talking about, like, my legs and, like, the now to later.
Exactly. And yeah, the sort of what motivates us to do things, and like this sort of short term, or like, oh, do it now versus later. And it was I think this YouTube ad, and, you know, it's those kind of, like, self-help things, and, like, blah, blah, blah.
I don't get YouTube ads because I'm not a pavo.
Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, but, you know, it's like those kind of just, again, motivational or, like, self-help and, like, be your best version of yourself. And, like, you usually skip with those, and, you know, they it's always interesting. You're like, whatever. I'm not buying what you're selling. But the guy did make, like, a point that I thought was interesting before I skipped the thing where, and he wasn't wrong, where your brain is wired for survival, not success. And I was like, that's not wrong, because technically, you know, because we are very much in the here and now, and, like, yes and no in the idea, like, there's certain things that we do in the here and now that, like, aren't necessarily good for our survival. But I did like the point he was trying to make in the idea where, you know, we were like, oh, why can't I motivate myself to, you know, put good habits or blah, 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 blah. And it's the idea of where, again, like, success is a long-term goal, survival is a here and now thing.
You could even say success is actually the symptom of survival. Because, like, if you think about it, like to me, I think a lot, weirdly too much, about the old days where people were, like, farmers and had to, like, literally work to live. Like, if you didn't put in your full day's work, you weren't surviving through the winter.
Exactly.
And I think, like, in those days, they would consider themselves very successful. Because they had survived and could feed all their children or whatever throughout the winter, and they had crops for the next year. And I think we've lost that in a way, because we're not working to, like, inherently, yes, we're working to survive because we have to pay our bills. But I think it's like when you get meat at the supermarket and it's, like, all cut up for you, it's all packaged and clean and neat. And there's no grittiness of, like, if I, like, I don't have to go to the stream to do my laundry. Yeah. And so because it's so easy, it's not, like, you know what I mean? It's so, it's almost like everything's on easy mode. Yeah. Well, and so we just feel unmotivated to do it.
Oh, well, for sure. And I think that's just it, where we are, and I mean, again, in the Western world, and I mean, you know, with the kind of lives that we were able to have for ourselves, there's the notion of, like, surviving or thriving. And we are at a point where, you know, it's like, oh, we have the leisure, we have the privilege to thrive, which is like, it's wild because and I think sometimes we forget that there is a inherent privilege in that too, because there's so many ways where you're like, I am surviving and that is the best that I can hope for, because that is all that I can get. And when you are at a point where it's like, not only can you survive, you can thrive, it's like, oh, okay, like that is already like next step. And I think that's just it. And that's why so many things, like, again, when we say hard, but that they're not actually hard, of like the everyday things where it's like, that there is a privilege in that as well, where you're like,
sisters are like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? We're like, it's hard.
No, but that's just it, where it's very much, again, first world problems, where you're like, why are you crying? It's just an email. And you're like, I don't want to do it though.
I've been meaning to take the cat to like a vet just to get checked out before she goes home, and I keep procrastinating it. And it's not because I'm afraid of phone calls. It's just like a new experience, and I haven't taken an animal to a vet in so long, so I'm like avoiding it, not because I'm afraid to call, but because I just like, it's a new thing.
Well, exactly, but I think
it's so easy. I just have to Uber over there and bring her, and they'll look at her and take her home. Like, it's so easy.
But I think that's another thing with adulting and doing hard things, is that it's, as you move on, it's just realizing, again, like there's a lot of new things every so often that you're like, oh, there are a lot of firsts where it's like, this isn't technically hard, but I've never had to do XYZ before, like, and even just like when first moving out from your parents' place, it's like, oh, I have to do my groceries, I have to do laundry, it's like I have to figure out what to do, if I get a flat tire, or anything really, like you said, it's like, oh, I have to go to the vet, or something happens, and it's just, there's a lot of like new things where I think it's realizing that we may be adults, but we're still kids, where you don't know how hard life can be until you've experienced it. And as much as, like, again, when we look at kids, we're like, you're crying over nothing, it's like, it's not that big a deal. Well, when you were that age, or for them, that is literally the worst thing that they've experienced so far, therefore it's okay that they feel like it's like, this is so hard. And I think sometimes, like, again, just the notion of the privilege of, if the hardest thing that I feel like I'm living through right now is the fact that I have to make a phone call, I have a pretty darn good life. Like, if that's really my notion of hard, is because, like, and not to say that, like, I can't still find it hard, because, again, if I've never had to do it, again, there's the novelty of like, oh, okay, you gotta kind of pull it together, because that's what's hard for, like, that is the hard thing for me to be doing right now, is that, versus literally anything else.
I think it's about maintaining perspective, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I was talking to someone today about, like, or yesterday, it was like that guy I met on Final Fantasy, and we were talking about, like, like a certain topic that's really relevant here in June, shall we say. And I was just saying, like, how the Western society views that topic is so different than, like, most countries in the world. Like we are so privileged here to have the freedom to believe or to do certain things that a lot of countries don't have. And that is pertaining to many things. And so I think this is relevant, by the way, to doing hard things, because I think we get in our head of like, oh, this is so hard. And I don't think we realize that, like, I'm not saying that we should, like, be stoic because other countries have it worse than us. No. I think you can still have a hard time. Like, again, I struggled with getting my G1, but I do think that, like, if you travel to other countries, like, let's take when we went to Mexico, going there and seeing how, like, the workers are not treated per se, but what their lives are like. They're literally waiting hand and foot on fat white people who are, like, getting burnt as hell at the beach and drinking like mojitos. And, like, it's fine because most people are probably nice to them, but you're living a life serving other people hand and foot, and, like, considered less than by a few of them. And it's not that I feel bad for them per se, but I do feel like I have to treat them well. And it makes me I go to Mexico to relax, but I come home with definitely an awareness that, like, I am so blessed and privileged to be able to pay money to go to a resort and be waited on. Yeah, that we have that money, that we have that financial stability and some to be able to do that. And like, I think that's what's important. And I know not everyone can afford to travel to see the world and see different cultures, but I think, like, part of what keeps you and I, like, even though we do feel like we have to do hard things and we might avoid them, I think we are a bit better with perspective mostly overall because we are a bit more empathetic. But I think traveling and seeing other, and I don't mean just like other cultures even in another country. There's even different cultures in our own country because in Canada we are so multicultural. So just putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and experiencing or seeing how other people are struggling. Like, I work in an accountant's company, I'm like salaried, and then I see other people I know who are working like hourly at like a Timmy's, and I have compassion and I understand, hey, I'm not having to commute. I'm not having to deal with like douchebag customers who are yelling at me. Like, I have such a, like, you know what I mean? And yeah, just having that perspective.
Well, exactly. And I think, like, yeah, it's well, and it's not necessarily just multicultural. It's just, again, like the sort of the what do we call them? Like the not social classes, but, you know, like middle class and lower class or whatever. Like, just, you know what I mean?
There's definitely classes.
Like, there's a level of, I think, you know, without necessarily calling it wealth, but just, you know, like,
I think it is a rich versus poor situation.
It's rich versus poor, and just kind of, you know, your background. And I see it sometimes just even with, you know, some clients where you can tell, like, some just come from less fortunate backgrounds, you know, be it financially or just with, you know, parents or family that, you know, there's like substance abuse or you know, just any type of abuse, really, honestly, you know, and not everybody has, not everybody has the same financial stability, mental stability, like, you know, just
100%
everything, you know, and you can see that in any, like, circumstance where, you know, or even just, again, like broken families, anything like that, where it's not everybody has had necessarily that kind of same stability. And that's where sometimes you are reminded, it's like, oh, I find this hard because I don't know what it's like to be in that kind of circumstance. And that's not to say that we'll all have our own struggles in different ways, you know, and I think it's just not underestimating what hard means for different people, and what they've been through, you know, and like we said, like health is a big thing too that you can take very, very much for granted,
yes,
in so many different ways, you know, where be it from just naturally, like, more genetically speaking, kind of health or physical conditions, and or because of and later illness or an accident or whatever, you know, where it's like, and that's where, you know, you've people where it's like, oh, things were going on, and then I had like a really big car accident, and then I was off work, and then blah 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 blah, and you're like, oh, okay, like,
and now I have back problems, and now I can't work, and all this
like
stuff.
We all have we like, everybody has their own story ultimately, and it's just having understanding.
I think what you're getting at, and what I'm reading from this, is that, like, everyone's level of hard is different. Mm-hmm. And, like, it's almost like there are some things, like, globally you would be like, okay, that's hard.
Universally.
Like having like if you had cancer, I think everyone would agree that's a hard journey, right? So I think there are some things where everyone would be like, okay, yeah.
There's capital H hard, and then there's,
yes, exactly, the big and the small hard. And so, like, having those different difficulty levels, for sure, like, I think having an awareness of what kind of hard it is, because then I think you have people who are, like, trying to turn, and I'm sure I do it, I can't judge them, but who turn a small hard into a big difficulty.
We like being like, dramatic.
Oh, this is the end of the world. Like, when I was going through my breakup, I'm pretty sure I acted, and sometimes probably still act, like it was like the worst thing that could happen to anyone. And, like, I have moments of clarity where I'm like, calm down. Like, you know, you don't have a kid out of it. Like, you're not, like, disabled or, like, disfigured. Like, you know what I mean? There
destitute.
are physical things that happen to people in bad relationships. I could be, like, reputationally wrecked if, you know, my ex decided to say things about me that were wrong, or, like, anything could go wrong in a relationship or out of a relationship. And it's like, hey, I'm just a little traumatized. But overall, like, I have such a support. And so it's like, I tended to make that big H hard. And now I'm realizing it was, okay, okay, maybe there's like a middle hard. It's like one side's capitalized, one side's not.
I know. Like,
it was hard, but it wasn't like it wasn't like impacts the rest of my life in a very visceral way hard. And I'm not trying to, I think also you don't want to downplay what your struggles are.
Oh no.
But like, or maybe hards can last certain like times, right? So maybe it was a big hard for like a year, but then I kept dragging it on to be like big hard for another year. And it's like, okay, you gotta chill. It's now a small hard. You can move on. You can like get through it. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and I
know your hard level.
Well, exactly. And I think it's exactly, it's knowing, it's the difference between like venting and complaining, where, I think there are times where you need that space in order to regulate, because let's just say, like, at one point, like, we do dysregulate. So it's like, if it's the point is just to help you kind of regulate and just like decompress and to just release the pressure a little bit, like, it's okay. And again, because we do need to kind of be and feel acknowledged and validated, but it's not falling into the woe is me and just kind of like want to, again, just sort of the frail Victorian woman just being like, I am dying.
I have been wronged. How shall I then live?
Exactly.
Everyone's like, okay, get over yourself.
Yeah, no, but isn't there a Charles Dickens book? I don't know which one it is. But there's a story where it's like, I think the girl kind of got like left on her wedding day or whatever, and she like moved so that the clock wouldn't move, and she always stayed in the dress, and it's like her life stopped. And it's like,
oh, interesting.
Like she kind of just refused to move on. It was like, and that's just it. And I think like there are times where we do make it harder on ourselves than it needs to be, because we like being dramatic.
Right. So like for example, to clarify, like there's a hard or difficult event that happened, and instead of being like, this was effing hard, like I gotta deal with it and I gotta like figure it out. And again, it takes time sometimes. Like, I'm not negating that. But instead of like working on it and trying to get through it and move on, you're instead making that, and I think we talked about this in the prior podcast or in a conversation that you and I had, I think it was a personal conversation where I was basically like, the breakup I made into this single tower that's eclipsed my whole life, and everything is like in the shadow of it. And it's like, that's wrong. I don't think that's right. I think like I can say this was a really hard moment in my life, but like, look, like again, to use the metaphor, we are on a road. We have to be on that road. I cannot just sit in the meadow and be like,
well, it's got to like, it's got to keep moving forward. And I think like
I have to find a new destination, essentially.
Well, exactly, but it's the idea like there's a difference between acceptance and resignation, and like in the way that I'd kind of imaged it to myself, it's the idea where we're all kind of going down a raging river. I think sometimes it's realizing.
Oh, another metaphor.
Exactly. Okay. Well, so many. I love me a good metaphor. Look, I'm guilty. Guilty's charged. That being said, but like it's the idea where life is hard. Like life is not just a little lazy river. It's like, no, it's gonna bunk you. But there's a difference between
what you?
It's gonna bunk you.
Okay.
You're gonna just whack on different things, and but there's a difference between I am aware, and therefore I'm choosing to face forward, so that in the degree that I can avoid things that are coming my way, I can at least move out of the way, and the things that I can't, where you're at least facing them in the right direction, and you're not just being like, resignation is just being like and just kind of,
it's not even facing, it's falling on the ground,
exactly,
and rolling around whining.
Well, exactly, it's just like you're just flopping there, and you're like, well, I guess this is it, and then you're bonking on things, and you're like, oh,
run me over.
Well, exactly,
I'm done for.
Exactly. And it's the see, I got hurt, and it's like, you could have just moved out of the way. Like that was it's like, and I think, like, again, finding a bit of a balance, in like, I think at one point we get tired and we're like, I'm done. But like, that's just like, sometimes like there is a certain level sometimes of self-sabotage that I think needs to be mentioned, where again we
as relating to hard things.
Yeah, like there is a level. Well, that's just it. Like resignation, where we're like, well, I guess this is it, and like we disguise acceptance as or rather we disguise resignation.
So like the phrase "I'm just gonna die alone."
Yeah, exactly. Like that's kind of just it. Where you're like, well, I guess this is it, and that's just it. Kind of just sitting down and like pouting, and and like I think
you've never done that, right?
But I think like there's a level where it's. I think
Sorry.
I think there's a certain amount of time where, well, and it's hard to put a time frame on these kind of things, but it's like it's okay to have moments where you're like, I don't want to do this right now, and then be like, this is it, final. Like like when you're like, I guess this is it. It's like I'm gonna die alone, and it's like have that be a very like affirmation and like not an exaggeration, and it's like it's knowing that again we say things sometimes like but we mean it as an exaggeration. Exactly. Like it's understood that it's dramatically and it's not meant to be taken literally. The problem is when we start to take it literally, that's when you're sabotaging yourself, because that's when you kind of veer into more of a cynical territory.
Well, the question is like, because I think as you and I have said before, we're very nuanced beings, so you could say that statement and then be like, oh, I was totally just kidding. And it's like, but like, were you 100% kidding? Because a lot of things you joke about have truth in them. So if you're saying like for example, you could say, oh, I'm gonna die alone. It's like, okay, that's kind of funny. It's kind of dramatic, like, haha. But then it's like, is your actions making that true? Like, are you what would the word be, like, again, sorry, yeah, like what you said, are you sabotaging any chance, like in my own life?
Self-fulfilling prophecies.
Like I joke about it, I'm like, oh man, all guys are whack, like that I talk to, and then I put myself in the position to only meet crazy dudes.
You feed the strays.
Yes, I feed the strays so badly in my life.
That's all the off topic, but
that could be another
That's topic. A topic for another time.
For another day, is feeding the strays and my bad yes. So that's another hard thing for me though, is like not giving time to people that don't deserve it. Like I'm always so hopeful. So like,
but that's I mean, like, well, deserving is a hard thing to peg down as well. Like I think it's
well, I think people inherently do or don't bring value into your life, and you have to decide at some point, like, am I going to put my time, because we all have like a certain amount. Like there was a guy I was talking to recently, do you remember, on Facebook dating, and it didn't work out.
Nope.
And he still is trying to talk to me, and I'm like, no, like you're a nice guy.
Oh,
like,
exactly.
I can't spend time on nice guys when I want to eventually one day get married and have kids and like do the whole thing. Like that's not the point of it.
Oh,
so
exactly.
It's hard though.
Well, exactly, and like, and that's just it. Is the hard part where I think sometimes what we establish as hard is different from one person to the next, depending on kind of who we are as a person, our personalities, 100%. Our strengths and our weaknesses. Like, you know, like we've joked a lot with the sort of the dating where it's the, you know, it's like, I'm forever alone, but it's like, I know exactly why, and part of it is within my control and part of it isn't. And like, I know that for me, it's the idea where what makes it that much harder is because I have such a poor social battery, you know, and it's the idea I've spent my day working with people. I only have so much left at the end of the day that I'm wanting and willing to input. And there are places that I'd rather input it than that, you know, like it just doesn't feel like the wisest investment right now, where it's the idea where it's like, it's unfortunate because I'd like to be able to, if I had the leisure to invest it there, I would, but it's at the expense of everything else. And it's like right now, it's like, that's just, it's like, I'm just surviving in terms of like social, where it's like, I don't have the extra, like, I don't have the budget to blow on that. And it's the idea where it's if I decide to do that, then something else is going to have to give. And it's hard because you're like, it just feels a bit more like of a mildly impossible scenario. And it's you can't have it all ultimately, but it's understanding where, you know, and that, like, there's a component of risk involved with a lot of stuff as well, but just at the same time, like for me, that's why I call it just hard, because it feels like the system is rigged.
So moving back to like the hard thing, I think that's actually also an interesting fact. What I'm again gleaning from what you're saying is, there's a certain nuance to hard things where it's like some of it's unavoidable and some of it we could work on. And I think that's another hard thing. Sometimes we are like for me, like let's say working out, it is hard for me because like once you get into a rut and routine and like I work from home, I sit at my desk all day to, you know, there's certain things that are like, or like I have bad knees. So like working out, it's like not always fun or, you know, I have, you know, just things can always come up, but there's a certain part of it where it's like, no, you have to take ownership and like make time and, you know, start easy. You know, don't be overwhelmed by all the choices out there. Like, don't be overwhelmed by like your lack of like being fit. Like, you can just start at the bottom because now we're here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and so like that's the part of hardness is like it's not always like you have 100% control of the situation and you can change it. It's like sometimes things are out of your control and it is hard because you can't fix it 100%. But I feel like in every situation, there's always things we could do to work on it and move forward.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's just it. And it's in knowing, okay, like what or why do I find something hard? And it's the idea where it's just it's annoying or it's inconvenient or it's I don't want to give myself the trouble or, you know, or it's you know, it's like you said, like there are a lot of things where, especially when you're alone, to have to try to figure it out, where it's like tag teaming is fun. And like we depend on, like, again, just the buddy system or just your environment can often be very either conducive or the opposite, like all depending. Like there's certain things that are made harder because you have pressure from people to do certain things,
or easier
or easier. Well, that's just it, exactly. Like
right?
you have to either or. Well, it's like what we said back in the condo days, where like that fantastic summer where we'd go like swimming and everything because we were both there and we were both like, oh, let's do this. I know for a fact I wouldn't have gone nearly as often to that beach.
Same.
Had I not had people to go with, and it was a not even 10-minute walk down the street to the beach. Like there is nothing there. There's literally nothing stopping you from doing it at any given day, and yet doing it alone would have felt hard because you're like, I have to convince myself like good enough reason, like again for all the weird reasons that we do or don't do things, but yet because like someone else was there, it was like, okay, like the part of the brain that was like, oh, this feels harder, oh, this feels like too much work, like just kind of snapped out of it and was like, we're doing this.
Which makes me feel like a lot of things that are hard in our lives are made easier or more accessible by community. Because and that's what we've talked about before, even in personal conversations. Like I struggle to do anything that isn't externally motivated. Like cooking, I would much rather cook for people. Working out, if I had like a boyfriend who was like, babe, like let's get like fit together, I'd be like, oh yeah, and let's go.
And the opposite can be true of someone who enables it. Let's just sit down and watch a movie. It's like, right, tomorrow. Like,
there's always the danger.
There's the danger. Like it goes both ways, but exactly. Like, like I think
partners can definitely go both ways, but like the potential is there to be like,
sure, hey, exactly. But that's just
let's eat like shit and then go work out.
But I think that's sometimes an interesting thought as well of like what we call hard or. Again, it's based a lot on our experiences, but also the experiences of the people around us and the people inputting into our lives. Like if
100%.
If you're with a lot of people who also have a certain level of ease and who are more complainy-ish, then you're going to be like, oh yeah, this haul is really, really hard and all really, really sucks. But if you're with people who can kind of nuance that and be like, yeah, no, it's not fun. It's maybe a bit complicated or it's annoying or it's tedious, but you know, you do the thing and then you're happy and then okay, good, like moving on. Kind of it depends on
or like
who you were.
How can I help you?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like it's not to interrupt you, sorry, but just I wanted to add in that little like, or they can be like, I'll check in on you. Like you and I decide to be accountable to each other and be like part of the reason I did the G1 is because I knew I was like, first of all, I booked time off work, and on my reason for booking time off work, I put like appointments / like driver's test, because I knew that if I was like, I'm for sure going away for like these couple hours, like to do it, like I wanted to have like a little bit of unspoken like accountability. And then you and I were talking last week, and then I told my 2 sisters that I was wanting to do it. So like all these people were like, and my sisters aren't as like involved in stuff as you are, because you and I think just are more like into that kind of, but like even then, like just having, you know, the few people in my life being, not being overwhelming with it, but also just being able to give me some like, just do it, like, just,
well,
like,
exactly,
it's not that big of a deal, just do it.
Yeah, like
I could be like, okay, you're right, it's fine.
Well, I think like the like I think again, just the part with adulting is that I think sometimes you're just tired of being the adult and you're like, I want an adultier adult to tell me to do things. It's like, I don't want to, it's like, I don't want to be the parental supervision right now. It's like, who thought it was a good idea to leave me in charge? It's like, excuse me. It's like, no. Just the monkeys jumping around in here need someone else than me, because I clearly cannot handle these people. Like, it's just, no.
That's why I think community is so important, because like, and that's why I think, like, not to be like super religious, but I think that's why actually God created us to be in relationships. And I think, like, I don't want to say the default is marriage, because I think that's such a shit thing to say to like singles, but I do think that's why a lot of people are meant to be married. And like, that is kind of the default. Like, again, I don't want to be a dick, but like most people who end up in a relationship are married. And yeah. I genuinely think it's because we work better with people around us to help us and to keep us accountable and encourage us and like take the weight of when, like you said, sometimes you don't want to adult. And that in my mind is like I like being in charge. I like, you know, being independent, but I'm not going to lie, having someone that I was married to being like, babe, like I can make dinner for us tonight would mean the world. Or him being like, oh, like, do we need anything to the store? You know, like to have someone to pick up the reins when you drop them,
to share the load.
Yes,
but
so
I think
why being single, it makes sometimes the harder things seem even more hard, because it's like I don't have someone to do them with, or
exactly.
to like keep me accountable, or like whatever, check in on me. I don't know, like anything.
Oh, exactly. And I think like that's why, you know, if you don't necessarily have a partner, or you're not someone who's inclined to have a partner, or it's find people. It doesn't matter who or how, like, well, of course, choose the right people, like ideally, but it's the have people. Like, don't try to do it alone.
I'm gonna go hang out with drug dealers.
Oh boy, wait, don't you already? Well, but
hey, Gerry, you already know I don't have friends.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Exactly. No, but I think it's trying to it's making sure that you're surrounded minimally by at least some people that you value and that who can be good influences in your life. Because I think like part of the reason sometimes that it just feels so is because we are in such a like individualistic and like society that then we're kind of told like, oh, you've got this, but sometimes it's like, I don't want to be just me. I don't want to got it.
You've got this.
Exactly.
Oh, you've got this.
Exactly. It's the like you got it's the but what if I don't got it, or what if I don't want to got it? Like it's tiring. It's a lot, and I think it's untrue. Because I think like we depend on each other like on so many different levels, and I think like the mistake is that we're supposed to be self-sufficient and that we're supposed to like got it is that like I think that's the mistake sometimes, is that because it's easy because we're dealing with our own things and we want to not be responsible for other people, so we're like, you've got this, you can do this, and then we can kind of remove our responsibility and ownership, or like having to kind of share and be there for other people. Like it can be a bit of a cop-out in its own right, but that's just it, of just like you don't got it, and it's okay that you don't got it, because we weren't meant to got it completely. Like you depend on people every single day, whether you like it or not. Like even if you are someone who lives alone, or like no matter how self-sufficient you think you are, that you've got it, like you depend on there being someone who stocks the shelves at the grocery store. You depend on janitors, you depend on road workers, you depend on
Amazon.
Exactly. Like, you know, exactly, like postal workers, and just like doctors, nurses, like just and on every spectrum of just level of everything.
You rely on like snow plows. You rely on like even just living in an apartment, you rely on like the repair and maintenance folks who can fix things for you. Like in every part of your life, you are relying on people in little ways. You're not an island unless you literally live in the middle of butt frick nowhere. and are growing things on your own and are like literally self-sustainable. But I can guarantee you, if you were doing that, you would still have the urge to rely on people and still want someone to like rely on you. Like, I think that's the part of like who we are as human beings.
Yeah, like I think it's the idea where, you know, I think, not to say that there couldn't be anybody who could do that, but again, they're very much the exception to the rule, and usually, like, it's not the most sane way to live your life.
There are definitely people, like I've seen on TikTok long ago, who were like, but see, again, okay? It's like, they're like, I live off-grid, and I have all this stuff, and like, I'm self-sustainable. Bitch, you're on TikTok. You have like a 12,000 follower count. You're not alone.
No,
You're
exactly.
Not off-grid. Not really.
No,
like,
and it's the idea where it's the you have Wi-Fi. That doesn't come from nowhere.
Yeah, you're making videos every day. Look, like, okay, you're not actually like living off the land if you're using Wi-Fi and like satelliting in your TikToks or whatever. Like, please, get your bag. It's fine, but don't act like you're this like self-sufficient, you know, totally like, no.
Oh, exactly.
But we digress. The point is hard things.
Hard things, and that life is hard, and that's okay. And ideally not make it harder on yourself than need be, but, you know, I think we're all trying our best, and I think that's just it as well, is not try to beat yourself up too much either, because that's just it. You know, the idea isn't to go like, oh, this isn't that hard, like, stop being a big baby. Like, there's a degree to which sometimes it's like, okay, wake up, but, you know, the idea isn't to always just constantly beat ourselves down either.
I'm a bit more hard-ass than you, I think. I'm a bit rougher because I grew up, again, with a lot of siblings.
Yeah.
I actually think that sometimes you do need to be slapped a bit and be like, get your head out of your ass. Like, you're making this harder for yourself and you're hurting yourself. And, like, if we don't, like, not saying every time in every situation, because sometimes a delicate approach is needed, for sure. But sometimes it's like, yeah, like, again, after the breakup, I've stewed. And I sat in my misery, and I liked it. And I needed people in my life to be like, okay,
babe,
stop.
Enough. Yeah,
he's not worth it. And like, you're just extending it. Like, you gotta like push. Sorry, I'm not trying to trash talk my ex. My point is, though, is like, people are able to speak in and be like,
he is not the love of your life.
Move on. Like, you got so much more, and there's so many other dudes out. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, you need people to be like pull yourself together. And that's, I just think that sometimes it's not fun, you know. And you and I have even had those conversations where like, it's not fun conversations to have when they're challenging you and like making you realize that you're making your own life harder for yourself. But it's really important. And I think having those people speaking to your life in that moment is really important.
Oh no, but it's very much the like, he is not the love of your life. He's literally just a guy. Hit him with your car. No, but like with just so many things. Again, the Edna
mode. What we're
going
to be doing after this episode. No kidding.
No, but it's the Edna mode thing where it's like, pull yourself together. And again, like I think, but that requires again like a certain level of relationship and trust with people to know what
you mean. You don't just message strangers on the internet that need to get their shit together?
Doesn't usually go over well, unfortunately.
I mean, I do it because I have no chill on Discord, but
sure.
I just send Edna mode gifs of her slapping Elastigirl.
But that's using humor. Like, that's just it. That helps to reduce the tension of it feeling so confrontational.
Yeah, I'm not Gordon Ramsaying them for sure.
Well, what are you?
An idiot sandwich.
It's fucking raw! Yeah.
Anywho.
Going back on topic. Yeah, things are hard.
Yep. And I think
things are difficult.
Very much so. So I think we can try to maybe, I don't know, are we feeling that we can try to wrap this up and try to recap?
100%. I think basically we agreed that things are hard, and that's it. Okay, good night, everyone.
Peace.
No, I'm kidding. No, I think we did. So I think, yeah, basically we agreed. Things are hard. There's different levels to hard. It can be alleviated or made easier by others. And also, like, it is also sometimes a matter of perspective. What else?
I think it's a nice recap. I think that's a really nice recap.
I really appreciate, like, yeah, I think we got it. Like,
we got it. I think we did. I honestly...
And for feedback, you know, I think we did okay. Like,
no, I think, like, honestly, for a first try, this was pretty decent. And I think, like, I like that we kind of, ultimately, like, I think we both... Yeah, we kind of found our guiding word, which was, like, okay, hard. Like, the adulting, but, like, hard. Like, we kept bringing it back. Like, that's just it. Where the eyes on the road was, like, that's my sign. You know, we kind of, we wandered off a little bit, but we kept bringing it back because we had, like, a sort of an inherent pull of, you know, just sort of the, what is it?
You like things that are hard?
The what is it? Lighthouse. Are you going to be good there?
I'm sorry. I'm going to be honest. By the way, if anyone's new to our podcast, I'm a child. Gerry is the one that holds the brain cells. So,
yes, I'm in charge of the brain
cells. Honestly, this entire podcast, every time we said the word hard, I just thought of dirty things. I'm gonna be honest.
Oh no, I'm surprised you. I'm honestly surprised you lasted this long.
Big heart and small heart. I was like, oh God, hold it together.
Honestly, I'm very proud of you.
You did really well.
I'm really proud of you. You did very good.
Up now, I had to let it out because I was like, you know, all things can be so hard. And now I'm like, okay, I've reached my limit. Can't say hard no more because it's just in my head.
But I think for first try though, that we did pretty good though. Like again, I think sometimes we kind of supplemented with, like, kind of additional or, like, mildly divergent ideas, but again we still stayed enough in the same lane that we aren't in a different town entirely.
So I think that it's okay if we go on a side road to the highway for a little bit and maybe do a little scenic route. I think our problem is that we would go on that side road and then we'd go on that side road to another side road. And then, like you just said, we would end up in a whole other town. So I actually really enjoyed the fact that we could have those side road moments where we take a little scenic drive, go visit a McDonald's, and then we get back on the highway.
Well, and I feel like what helped too is that I think we much more easily and naturally found a bit more of an end point than we normally do. Like, I think at one point...
Because we weren't tangenting so
exactly.
much.
Well, I think that's just it, is that we like, as much as you can talk forever on a certain topic, but at one point we're like, I feel like we've made our point. I think we're good. And even the fact that you were that easily able to do just a quick recap and summary speaks to the fact that we were able to stick to a fairly close topic. Like, because...
Or I'm just good at summarizing.
That too.
No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I don't think I am, but well, maybe a little bit.
No, I think you're good. Like, you actually, like, I was impressed. Like, that was good.
I don't know why, but every time Gerry says she's impressed with me, I feel like there's a factor of surprise to her voice. So I'm like a little like, what do you mean you're impressed? I'm impressive, okay?
Yeah, you did good. You did good.
Thank you.
No, here's the thing. No, it's the surprise. Here, we've already established that I've stopped expecting anything out of you. We had...
Then what was it?
We literally just had this conversation where it's like, I've just stopped being surprised.
And I was like, I'm surprised it took you that long.
Exactly.
I don't make good decisions, let's be real. I'm very spontaneous. Yeah. I just do what I want to, or what I see happen, and that's led me down some dark paths.
Yeah, no, and that's where you and I are very different people. Very different people.
I think that's why we're good for each other. Because you could be like, you're literally being the stupidest person I've ever met right now. And I'm like, would you just be free? Just
no. How had you...
like, freedom? I don't know what this is.
That's too anxiety inducing.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, no, I like my box. I like my expectations and space.
Exactly. Yeah. No,
it's really good for us.
Oh, it's a good balance because, like, what was it that time where you'd asked me with the cat where it's like, would it be
am I stupid or something?
Yeah, I think it was stupid. It was like, stupid, I don't know. Crazy, yes. Or I don't remember what it was, but it was something like that.
I was like, am I stupid if I take care of my ex's cat? And you were like, Stupid? No. Crazy? Yes. I was like, well, I guess I'm crazy. And you're like, please tell me you did it.
No!
Like,
No! 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 Oh, God, no!
like,
no!
yeah, the Michael, God, no, please, no. I'm like, I'm just over here making decisions. And Jerry's like, the wrong ones. The wrong ones.
Oh, no. And that I was like, the line, I put my foot down. It ends here. This is, it stops here. Anyway, yeah, no, but we balance each other out. And I think that's why, like, even just in doing this exercise, like, that I was a bit more, I don't necessarily willing, but like, I like structure because I just rely on it so much to not lose my mind. It's very, very helpful to me. Like, and like in excess, it's not good, obviously, but it's just because I'm just naturally more inclined of, like, again, just being so scatterbrained. And is that like, this sort of just almost like mild disassociativeness of just not knowing what's going on, where and when I am, kind of thing. So it just helps for me. It's very, very grounding to have those kind of things in place, or else it's just galaxy brain all the way. And you know, where it's like it's not like, for me, it's I'm a little bit all over the place, not because of a more inherently gypsy idea, where it's just the brain just goes bloop,
Bloop.
bloop, bloop.
I am very particular, so if I more don't like to be kept in a box, because if I get put in a box, people expect certain things of me, but also, like, if I'm in the box, I want to know all the dimensions of the box. I want to know, like, I get really, like, into details and into, like, figuring things out. So that's why I try to stay outside of the box, because if I get in the box is getting completely, like, I have to figure everything out and know. And that's why, like, we struggled in our conversation about, like, fleshing out things. So I was like, okay, so if we have to flesh it out, we're fleshing it out. Like, I need to know everything. I need to know what we're talking about, why, like, how long, like, but, you know, are we timing ourselves? Are there signs and waving involved? Like, I was like, we gotta get it all figured out. I want to know everything.
Yeah, well, it's either I know nothing or I know everything, and but I think, like, it's what's funny with you, where it's like, and in different ways, but for you, like, you're rigid about how you want to be flexible, which is really funny.
Yeah, I was like, I don't make no sense right now.
Like,
I don't want to be held in a cage.
like that's it. You're like, I'm very particular. I'm really picky, but, like, also I'm like, it's the, like, how do these both coexist? Because, like that's just, like, you are very particular for a lot of things.
I know what I want.
And well, exactly, which how
ask the Lord Jesus. It's not my decision. I was born like this.
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's
mental. Oh, I was gonna say maybe it's mental illness.
There's that one too.
No, I just always know what I want or like, and Jerry's the opposite. And again, that's why our relationship, friendship, working relationship, everything works so well. I bring you down. No, you bring me down. I bring you up.
You lift me up.
What is the song about grounding? Sure to get down. Good Lord.
I don't know. Oh.
Strictly bitchy, don't play around. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is definitely not kid friendly.
Was it ever?
No.
No. Look here, I'm over 30 now. So I do what I want.
Okay, and in doing what you want,
okay,
shall we wrap it up for today?
Should we release everyone?
I was gonna say, I think
horror.
Yeah, because I think we're doing the thing again where we keep going on.
We're like, we did so well. We did okay. Now let's tangent for the last little bit. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed. And we will be trying next time to continue to stay on topic while staying concise. I think that might be our next trip or next journey. Or something else, whatever, I'm not looking forward to the no interrupting one, because that's a really hard thing.
Oh, goodness. Oh, boy. Oh, dear.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard.
Which is why it'll help, though, if we do concise first, because if we're shorter in our ideas, then we will hopefully not feel like interrupting nearly as much.
I agree.
There's a progression. So we'll see.
I'm still worried she's gonna fall off that thing. Anyway. All right, I'm gonna go save the cat. It was great talking to you, Gerry, and I hope everyone has a good rest of your day or night or whatever you're doing. And we'll see you all next time.
Take care. Bye.